Thanks, Tim. We're here at a School for A Course in Miracles. I'm Dave, and we're going to be looking at lessons 38 and 39 today. And I thought before I get carried away, as I do sometimes and forget to do an opening meditation, I thought I would start there. So I would like to go to today's lesson. And I would like to read paragraphs 14 and 15 as an opening meditation. And if everybody's there, if you want to follow along or just sit and listen for a second. You cannot fail today. There walks with you the Spirit heaven sent you, that you might approach this door someday, and through his aid slip effortlessly past it to the light. Today that day has come. Today God keeps his ancient promise to his holy Son, as does his Son remember his to him. This is a day of gladness, for we come to the appointed time and place where you will find the goal of all your searching here and all the seeking of the world, which end together as you pass beyond the door. Remember often that today should be a time of special gladness, and refrain from dismal thoughts and meaningless laments. Salvation's time has come. Today is set by heaven itself to be a time of grace for you and for the world. If you forget this happy fact, remind yourself with this. Today I seek and find all that I want. My single purpose offers it to me. No one can fail who seeks to reach the truth. And if you would just let's get quiet for just a minute. And gently come back. And I have to ask, did anybody slip through that door today yet? No? I don't know what happened, but in that, and I don't know if I slipped through the door, but I got to such a peaceful place. It was just for an instant or so. And I felt so peaceful and so comforted and safe. But the weird thing was that, and I say everyone came with me, and I don't even know what I mean when I say everyone. But I just had this feeling for just a brief second of oneness. And I don't know how I got there, but besides I just let go of the world for a minute. And I wanted to seek nothing else but my Creator in that moment. And it was just a blip for a second, and it was just so beautiful. And when I came back to sit for just a second ago, and I was like, I don't even remember what today's lesson is. All I can remember is that feeling that I had for just a second. And I thought, you know what, that's good enough for right now. I'll just carry that with me through the day, So anyway, we're here to look at lessons 38 and 39. So let's look at lesson 38 in the workbook. And, I've been struggling a little bit with these, but I think it's because of what lesson 39 tells us, is that guilt is hell, and what is its opposite? And I think I struggle with that because I'm so attracted to guilt and just don't even know it. And so, I kind of bounced around in a couple places, and we'll just see where it takes us. I've got a couple things in the text written down, and then something in, anyway. So let's just take a look at it. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. And I read this a couple times today, and this is kind of how I ended up reading it back to myself. In paragraph 1, it says, your holiness reverses all the laws of the world. It is beyond every restriction of time, space. And when I read time, I thought about sin, guilt, and fear. Sin being the past, guilt be in now, and fear be in the future. Space, time, distance, and limits of any kind. Your holiness is totally unlimited in the power because it establishes you as the Son of God, at one with the mind of his creator. And then I went on to paragraph 2. Through your being one mind with your creator, the power of God has made manifest. Through your being at one mind with your creator, the power of God is made available. And there is nothing that the power of God cannot do. Your being of one mind, excuse me, I can't even say it. Your being at one mind with your creator then can remove all pain, can end all sorrow, and can solve all problems. It can do so in connection with yourself and with anyone else. It is equal in its power to help anyone because it is equal in its power to save anyone. And in that holiness, I just put being at one with my creator. And because I don't really know what holiness is, but I guess it is that symbol of oneness. And this book is all about symbols. It's all about words, and it's how we interpret those words sometimes. And I didn't know if anybody had anything on those first couple paragraphs that they'd like to comment on. Are y'all going to be a quiet bunch today? All right. Let's look at paragraph 3 then. I think for a second that moment that I had this morning, that was just a glimpse of holiness for just that second, for just that moment. I can't put into words the feeling that I felt. And it was just a glimpse for just a second. But I do know, or I don't remember any time ever having quite a feeling like that, of such ease and comfort and peace. And it was joy. It was all those things talked about. But I think the most extraordinary thing about it was, and I can't even begin to put it into words, how everyone came with me. And there wasn't anyone. It was just everything. I don't know how to even say that. But I just had that presence, that knowing of that everyone was there and everyone was okay in that moment. It was pretty special. I hope I can hang on to it for a while. All right, so let's look at paragraph 3.
David,
Yes.
I just love when that happens. You start with, I don't know what holiness is. And you just described it for us perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess. As best as I can do with words, because it was way more magnificent than I can explain with any words that I know. So, but it was beautiful. Okay, so let's look at paragraph 3. If you are holy, so is everything God created. You are holy because all things he created are holy. I guess that's my problem, is I've forgotten that, And, I think between doing some of these lessons and taking the ego lightly and doing the unhealed healer and doing this all kind of at the same time, it's all really starting to kind of come together, for me anyway, that I think more than anything, it's just, I'm starting to see the lightness in just not knowing that I've made an error and I just don't have to take it all so seriously. And I think the other part of that is knowing or accepting the fact, I guess, that this world I see as a reflection of my thoughts. And so nothing's happening from the outside. And when I can just step back for a second and remember that I have to look within to heal, and then I can ask for some help. And it's just, I guess the miracle happens at that point. It just changes, you know. But I think just being willing to stop blaming everyone and everything for everything, and that it's all coming from within, from a silly mistaken thought that I think I'm separate from my Father, and that I'm a sinner, and then all the things that we believe that I think we keep hidden so deeply that we don't even know they're there. And I think what this course does is brings this stuff to the surface so we can look at it. And then with the right teacher, we can see that if we're willing to believe what we're being told here, which why am I doing it if I'm not going to believe it? That we've just made a silly mistake and we just don't know. And it's really just nothing more than that. I just don't know. I just don't know. And if I'm willing to, with another teacher, willing to walk with that teacher, it can change the way I see the world. And this just becomes a big classroom of just remembering, you know. So yeah. I thought for a second, I want to go to page 211 in the text, section 8. And I need to mark my spot here so I don't lose it. And then I just kind of want to jump around in this section for just a minute or so and kind of look at it. And it's section 8, the problem and the answer. And there's a lot in this section for sure. So I'm going to just kind of, I guess, take the points that sort of jumped out to me as I was reading, because lesson 39 is, there's a lot in there, and I don't want to get lost in this and then kind of get to 39 because there's a lot there. The problem and the answer. This is a very simple course. Perhaps you do not feel you need a course which in the end teaches that only reality is true. But do you believe it? When you perceive the real world, you will recognize that you did not believe it. Yet the swiftness with which your new and only perception will be translated into knowledge will leave you an instant to realize that this alone is true. And I think I had that for just a second today. And then everything you made will be forgotten. Well, that didn't happen. The good and the bad, the false and the true. For as heaven and earth become one, even the real world will vanish from your sight. The end of the world is not its destruction, but its translation into heaven. The reinterpretation of the world is the transfer of all perception to knowledge. And it's funny that he starts that out with, this is a very simple course. And then it gets a little bit complicated from there. So I guess if you know the truth and like he does, it would be very simple. But we just don't believe it. And then I just want to jump down to paragraph 3. You do not know the meaning of anything you perceive. Not one thought you hold is wholly true. The recognition of this is your firm beginning. And that's my problem, is I just believe what I'm thinking is true. And it isn't until recently that I've really begun to question that. And then I want to look at paragraph 4. No one can withhold truth except from himself. Yet God will not refuse you the answer he gave. Ask then for what is yours, but which you did not make, and do not defend yourself against truth. You made the problem, God answered it. Ask yourself, therefore, but one simple question. Do I want the problem, or do I want the answer? Do I want guilt, or do I want holiness? I think a lot of times I choose the problem. That's what I really want, if I'm honest. And then down to paragraph 7. Little child of God, you do not understand your Father. You believe in a world that takes because you believe that you can get by taking. And by that perception, you have lost sight of the real world. Not for a second do I believe giving and receiving are the same thing. I think I have to take to get. That's just the premise of what I run my life on. And that all comes from the fact that the scarcity principle, that if I just don't have everything, and I don't believe that God has given me all I need, everything I need. And the whole problem with this is I think I'm a body and not a mind. And as a body, I just can't do this stuff. It's just, there's no way, and that's where I have to really start to question. I keep trying to do this as a body, and it's just impossible, and until I release myself of being a body and find that peace in my mind, like this morning, I was able to let go of the world for just a moment. And then I'm back in it again, and I'm back in the illusion again. And then let's see, paragraph 14. You, my child, are afraid of your brothers and of your father and of yourself, but you are merely deceived in them. Ask what they are of the teacher of reality, and hearing his answer, you too will laugh at your fears and replace them with peace. We're all just one. How can I be afraid of myself? But if I think I'm separate from you, then that's definitely the case. Because there again, I think what I must get, I must take, because I feel I lack. And I just don't know. I need help in seeing that. And then paragraph 15. Would you not exchange your fears for truth, if the exchange is yours for the asking? For if God is not deceived in you, you can be deceived only in yourself. That you can learn the truth about yourself from the Holy Spirit, who will teach you that as part of God, deceit in you is impossible. When you perceive yourself without deceit, you will accept the real world in place of the false one that you have made. And then your Father will lean down to you and take the last step for you by raising you unto him. And I just thought that just kind of covers like everything in just those little bits of parts there, that holiness is what I'm so afraid of. That oneness, that sharing. So has anybody got any comments on anything? Yeah, Abe.
Yeah, that paragraph 15, where it says that, all it takes is to ask. And I've been thinking, I guess this is probably a man thing, but, when we get lost, we don't ask for directions. This is before, of course, the Waze and the GPS and all that. We just want to figure out on our own. And that's pretty much the mindset I'm usually in with regards to the way home. I think I know how to do it. I just don't want to ask for directions, and I just keep getting farther into the forest and more lost when I do that. You just need to relax and say, I don't know where I'm going. I need help. Help me. Yeah.
Yeah, Lynn Altman.
Yeah, I've been really, as you've been reading this morning and thinking about your experience, keep thinking about the secret wish, which underlies what we think we're experiencing. And it's like the secret wish for autonomy is what's driving the whole, that's what makes us take the tiny mad idea seriously. And it contains with it, this is kind of what I'm trying to flesh out, it contains within it the entire ego thought system. And so, until I really recognize that the two go hand in hand, that the wish and the effect, cause and effect, are the same, then I'm kind of just dealing with all this surface stuff, the grievances, the, seeing my brother guilty and all that sort of stuff. But what's driving it is that belief that I have something to gain by disconnecting from God and everything to lose by reconnecting. But that's part of the belief structure that's contained within the secret wish. And I'm really glad I'm saying this out loud, because I think what I'm talking about is bringing the dissociation of the effect back to the cause of the wish. And then that's so overwhelming, the sort of enormity of that if I just stay with that myself, I'm lost. But that's the moment where, if I ask the Holy Spirit to help me look at that, he is the means for me to see that it's not a serious question. There's no serious answer. It's simply nothing. And that's getting to that place where the two come together, and just having a moment, pausing, just taking a breath and allowing myself to not try to deal with it myself. I'm thinking that's, for me, is beginning to make sense. That's where the door can open, if I can just be with the enormity of that thing, of the cause and effect coming together. And it's not that the effect is going to be even worse because I've done that, but it's just that the whole thing is going to dissolve. And then that experience that you had, and that we've all had from moment to moment, different times, becomes the way we move in the world, within the dream, until we're completely ready to let go of all of it. But I appreciate your insights this morning. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and it's all that fear of just looking at it, is because we don't want the answer. It's really kind of silly when you think about it. Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, I like this question in italics. Do I want the problem, or do I want the answer? My response is an unequivocal yes.
Yeah, exactly. To both of them at the same time. Yeah, cake and eat it too, right?
I was thinking about what Abe was saying. I guess what really hit me and just led into this whole thing was in the very first paragraph back on 211, when he said, "Is my sound okay, by the way?"
Yes.
And while I'm thinking of it, Abe, your mic's a little low. If you could, it's been low lately, so if you can turn your mic up a little bit. I've been meaning to suggest that, but I keep forgetting. Anyway, back at the ranch, the first paragraph, when he says, line 4, when I perceive the real world, I will then recognize that I didn't believe it. It's like, I'm lost and I don't know I'm lost. I actually believe that all this is just the real deal. And I'm not going to know that it's not the real deal until I get to that third step of forgiveness. And then that last question, he says, so you think you're afraid for the reason you think. You think you're in the woods, you don't realize you're lost even, and you don't even know what the real problem is, but at least you can admit you're afraid. And so you're not really afraid for the reason you think, but you're just making up all these kind of fears of the woods. But you're really afraid of God's love is ultimately what's going on. But at least I can admit I'm afraid, and maybe there's a way out of the fear. So that becomes like the initial motivation, is if I can let go of this crazy fear I'm feeling, whatever it's coming from, like he said in that last, would I not exchange my fear for truth? Even though I don't really know what I'm afraid of. I know I'm afraid. Like, would I be willing to do something else here? Be willing to shoot for that third step of forgiveness, where I can actually realize I believe that the woods were real. I didn't know I was lost in this unreality. That I won't realize how much I did not believe in the real world until I get there. It kind of like flipped me out.
Yeah. And the thing about the fear is, I don't even know I'm in fear. I think it's normal. I'm like the frog that's been boiled, you know. It's like I was just put in the water and somebody just kept turning up the heat and I didn't know it, you know. And it's like, and so now I think that's the new normal, you know, that's the way it just is. And I don't know that there's any other place to go or anything else to look for. And thank for the blessing of this course that well, apparently to get here, I had to be seeking something in the first place anyway. And that everything I had sought before definitely wasn't working. And there seems to be some sense of, I don't know, something here that answers some of those questions. Yeah, Jean.
So this morning, in my kind of stream of consciousness, the word in the lesson, so much for me. And I was thinking, I always like to go in anything, even in conversations with my family or whatever, back to source. And I was thinking in that crazy moment, and of course, I did not laugh. I did not laugh when untruth was thought to replace truth. And I thought my innocence was gone. Here I'm looking at this chapter 11 that we're studying, and I'm realizing Jesus had to, so he's teaching me my innocence in these simplistic ways, because it is simple. I mean, there is no ghost there, but because in that moment, I forgot to laugh in that, as I walked away from source. And so that really helps me sometimes when I'm really in my ego and some of this just becomes like thought after thought after thought. I have to go back to that and think, I do have the power. These thoughts, ego thoughts, are so powerful because source is so powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know, like, I've had those moments where Jesus has spoken so clearly to me that he is here for me and he will never forsake me. And if I will just ask him, and like Abe said, I say I forget to ask, but I don't think I want to ask, and it was like a week or so ago, it was just so clear to me again, where he just loved me and said, I'm here. All that you have to do is follow me. And in that moment, I was like, oh, yeah. And then it was minutes later, it was just like, I could remember it, but I wanted to forget it. It's like, I didn't want to ask. I was so comforted in that moment. And then I didn't want it. It was just, I don't know, I didn't want it, but obviously I didn't want it, And then I go back when I'm with my ego Jesus, and it's like, I can't find him, And it's like, and I was listening to, I think it's Jesus and the Resurrection that you sent us, Tim, before the workshop to listen to. And just something stuck out to me. He said, what Jesus are you listening to? The Jesus of the crucifixion or the Jesus of the resurrection? And I think that's my problem oftentimes, is I'm listening to the Jesus of the crucifixion. That's what I believe. And I don't believe that the resurrection. Yeah, Jean.
And you're right in the thought of the resurrection. It can be so insidiously in our lives, like the light that comes with this presence is so strong. But now lately, and I've been noticing here at home that because it's so bright, sometimes I'll close the shades to the light. I mean, ridiculous. Like, I close the shades to that. How silly. How silly.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that, like in lesson 39, that question of, do I believe hell is hell? No, I think hell is salvation. As I believe being lost in the woods is saving me from heaven. God, don't admit that. It's saving me from the resurrection. I don't want a resurrection. I'd rather stay lost in the woods and terrified of the woods. Yeah.
Audrey, then Maurice.
I'm going to preface this by saying that I've often been told that why questions are useless, but I wonder why. Why do I am I so reluctant to feel holiness? Why do I get in my own way so much? And this image of an ego that is fighting for its life is sort of helpful to me. It helps me understand, because in most areas of my life, if you tell me what's going to make me feel better, I'll consider it and I'll often do it. It's interesting that in this most important arena, I need so much cajoling and reminding to get everything I've ever wanted. It is an interesting conundrum. I feel like that's a little bit what you're referring to when, that we keep needing to be reconvinced, to take these very simple actions. And they're so simple, but the initial distortion is just so great. Like, it's not like they're telling me that 2 and 2 doesn't equal 4, it actually equals 5. They're saying that it actually equals 70 billion 32 to the nth degree. It's such a radical shift between how I've always lived and truth. And it baffles me that I'm so resistant. Just a little rant.
No, I get it. We all get it, I think. Yeah, or Reese.
Well, when you said, do I believe in the Jesus of resurrection or the Jesus of crucifixion? And it came to me, you are that when it says here in page 211 in number 3, paragraph 3, it says you are not misguided. You have accepted no guide at all. And I think it came to me about Jesus. I wonder if every one of us who thinks we are separate has a separate Jesus. If we each had to describe Jesus, who he was to us personally, we would probably have a different Jesus. And so we can't, no wonder we're not united. That just
Yeah. And it's all just, we're just fearful. And really, it really comes down to the fact that we just don't know, and I think that's why this course is so intent on looking, that when you can have these little experiences like we've all had, and then we get back into the world and see how miserable it makes us. And at what point will we keep looking enough that we won't value that anymore? And that we'll value that peace and that tranquility and more than what we're looking for in the world. And I just think we have to keep looking, that when we choose the wrong teacher, we look at that, and he tells us in the workbook lessons about having the experiences. And as we have more of those experiences, now that we have a yin and a yang, we can compare and which one we want more. And hopefully after a while, we choose peace instead of this. But for right now, that's not the case so much. So, yeah. Lynn, did you have something, Lynn Corona? You're on mute, Lynn.
As you started sharing, David, what came to my mind, that you are so clearly demonstrating this place of, I do not know the thing I am. I don't know where I am, what I'm doing, how to look upon the world or my brother. It's that place of total humility that he says that this is the thing we're most afraid of. And then at the end of it, he says, but in this understanding that I know nothing, I absolutely don't know what I am or who I am, that in this learning, salvation is born, and what you are will tell you of itself. That last statement, what we are will be revealed only when we stop making up what we think we are. We don't know nothing, when we're absolutely willing to come with empty hands unto our God and stand there and be still and know nothing. And it begins to be born in us. The truth is already there. We call it born again as spirit, but it's already there. We just have to get out of the way. We just have to stop thinking we know anything. And it's so beautiful, sweet. Our innocence really begins to show as your innocence is showing, as you're sharing. And it's a beautiful thing for all of us to observe that in one another and see how it actually begins to shine through, as the Course says, and we see it. So thank you so much for being so honest and sharing.
Yeah, and I got thinking too, is like every time there's a conflict or a difference, it really comes down to two people who want to be right. One more right over the other person. It just really just comes down to that. And really, oftentimes, the whole point of anything gets lost. And the only thing that's there is the determination to say, I know better than you know. And I don't know anything. And so it's just, it's like you said, Lynn, it's like wanting to be so right about everything. It's wanting to know so badly, it defines me. I have to know, I have to know everything. And, I think most of us have an opinion about anything, it's like, and here it comes again, all about differences and starting at a point of opposites, never from a starting point of innocence and oneness.
It starts to feel like wanting to be me or a person, and finding myself when I'm with someone and I want to make a point. It's an act of aggression. I begin to feel it as it's a point of aggression of like, I'm going to tell you who I am here. And I don't know. The lie is overwhelming, that we really don't know. Thanks.
I've been thinking historically about, my Jesus is more right than your Jesus. I mean, look at the Crusades. I mean, look at the Republicans' God compared to the Democrats' God. I mean, look at my Jesus compared to my Jesus of the Course compared to other Jesuses of other Course teachers. I mean, it's just this battle of Jesuses. And really, it's no guide at all. I mean, at that point, the real Jesus is thrown out the window. And, I'm making myself my own God. I decide what's right. And then in the name of that God that I made up, I can kill you. I can kill the infidels. I can kill the bad Course students. I can kill the bad Republican part or whatever party it is I'm having an issue with.
Yeah. And then I get stuck in the fact that I try to do it here as a body. And I just keep getting back on the merry-go-round again, and it's like every once in a while I get off for a second, then I get right back on the merry-go-round and I start trying to do it as a body. And the body is here, so we can't do it, and we just get lost in that so quickly and so easily. We go down that slippery slope into trying to fix it in the world and in ourselves, and it's got nothing to do with that. It's about in our mind. And I don't even think half the time about going back to my mind, I need these lessons to teach me to do that. Yeah, Myra.
Ken Wapnick is always so helpful. And he says, remember, Jesus says there's nothing to fear. You are not going to go poof. The body does not go poof. Your personality does not go poof. Your whole situation, the life that you're living here, it does not go poof. But the whole purpose changes because the whole interpretation changes. And that is what you really want.
Yeah. And I think slowly and surely through these lessons, and I can't, here we're in like 30 days in, a little 38 days into doing these lessons. And look what he's laying on us about this holiness. And here we all are, with several years in this course. And it's like, we're just now starting to understand what he's trying to tell us. And even then it's overwhelming. And just to throw this at us at day 38 and 39, it's like, there's a lot here, and I don't know how anyone would go through these lessons. I guess if you did them perfectly, if you do one of them perfectly, right, I guess you get it. But yeah, so I don't know.
I think Gene was waiting.
Yeah, Gene.
Well, and I have to say, it's when Lynn, you were talking about how conflict can be aggression. And I've lived with someone for 50 years who's very conservative. And this morning we had a conversation about something. And I just felt the presence of something to engage in the laughter. And that was my life preserver and his. It was gone. And, there is such an intelligence in laughter. And I forget it. I get too serious, so this is we're in this like boat of trying to, because we got to be serious enough that we can get through our ego stuff. But if I'm not lighthearted, will I see my brother as a face of Christ? Will I? I don't think so. Thank you.
That's such a great point, Gene.
I was thinking of
so
taking the ego lightly, like that Ken's whole riff about Jesus laughing all the time. He's not just sitting on our shoulder, he's sitting on our shoulder laughing, trying to get us to laugh too. Like, no, my Jesus is very serious. And let me tell you.
Yeah, I mean, if just for a second we would grasp that fact that it's just a dream in our head and it's not true. And then to look at the silliness of what we're doing, how can you help but laugh at it? But we get so caught up in it that we don't even think to look at how silly it could be, and when I do, it always comes with a snicker afterwards of like, you see what you're doing, and then you just see how ridiculous it is. And it's just like, oh man, there I did it again, So, yeah. So should we take a look at lesson 39? This one was, I don't know, kind of a tough one. Let's see here. I put a mark in there and then I lost it.
Page 60.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody want to kind of read this first one and maybe comment on it after they read it? Yeah, Chris, thank you. You're on mute, Chris.
That's because
I hope you didn't get
electronic
too
things
far
around
along.
me have a mind of their own. That's why. Anyway, oh boy. My holiness is my salvation. Or we used a lot of words to change or supplement salvation. I like the word atonement. I think there were other ones too, because salvation gives me the shivers. But there's a lot of ways we can look at that. It's kind of the same thing in my mind anyway. If guilt is hell, what is its opposite? Let the text for which this workbook was written, the ideas used for the exercises are very simple. Oh, there's a missed word. Like the text for which this workbook was written, the ideas used for the exercises are very simple, very clear, and totally unambiguous. We are not concerned with intellectual feats or logical toys. That's right, we're in the workbook, not in the text right now, right? Okay. We are dealing only in the very obvious, which has been overlooked in the clouds of complexity in which you think, or I'll say in which I think. So yeah, it's talk about having gentle little laughter. Sometimes you come across something that's so simple and clear, and we want to make it complex. I think the word is obviation. I think that's the word where you try to muddle up the simplest thing. We're all obviating all the time, if that's the right word. But very quickly, with all the comments, so sometimes I'll tune in and I can't stop writing little things that are helpful to me. Because I used to think just coming to this group was just an intellectual activity till I realized that's what I was making it. And now I'm more and more getting aha experiences and feeling presence and being in the present moment. The one that came this morning for me was we were talking about holiness equals oneness. And also that's experienced in the now, because really it seems like Ken keeps saying what we're in the Course in Miracles book too. We're not after agreeing on a theology, we're after a universal experience. And I know I've had a lot of those with you guys and with other areas, but I also put down here that now is what we're looking for. Holiness equals oneness, and the miracle happens in the now. But the now I put down is a slippery little. It's very easy to slide into separation or ego, and that was just. It's just so makes me so happy I'm here this morning. I have this time because I had a whole bunch of things, but they're just flooding in. But mostly they're. I'm experiencing them not as a concept or a new idea or an answer to a mathematical question, but just to the experience of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
I was thinking about how when you used to go to the playground when we were little, we would take wax paper and put it on the sliding board so you would really book. So like guilt is like the wax paper, right? Yeah, like I mean, you want to go from the mind into the world as fast as you can, so you don't realize you did it. So you take all this guilt, you gum up the sliding board, so it's like really fast. You slide right into the world, and then you think the world's real. It happens so fast.
Yeah, and I forget where it is in the course, but it tells us of all our fears and everything. Never did we think once that guilt was the cause of all of it. And who even thinks about guilt, really? I mean, I'm just busy projecting it out so I don't have to look at it. And I don't even recognize it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the trippy part is if I really believed that holiness was my salvation, I'd be done. No, just under the surface, I totally believe guilt is my salvation. Really? I do? I mean, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Do I believe that holiness is my salvation? Well, no, I actually believe just under the surface and never want to admit how stupid that sounds. To say it out loud sounds really stupid. Guilt is my salvation. It's saving me from God. It's saving my little self from being sucked up into this eternal oneness.
Audrey.
But is it really so surprising? Because that's what, the smallest children are taught, that guilt does lead to salvation. They had hair shirts, they had, suffering, pain, atonement. Those were the things that led to, salvation. I feel like that might be part of the puzzle, is that there's so much unlearning to do. We've become so, I'm Jewish, so I didn't grow up with the Jesus or God the Jewish God that I was introduced to was completely so separate from me as to not even really exist. It was just this thing you didn't want to piss off too much, which I think is true for a lot of children in a lot of religions. But the idea of Jesus is very welcome to me. This concept of, or Holy Spirit's, a being I can sort of walk with is really quite beautiful. But that also requires a great deal of unlearning, because I was always ashamed of myself. I wouldn't want anyone to, know who I really was. I'm just beginning to see the magnitude of the unlearning that is necessary. And it is happening. I do the exercises, I sit for 10 minutes and I'm thinking, at first I'm like, well, where's the door? Is the door under or is it over here? You know, like I just totally overthink everything. And then I just let go of it. I sometimes think I'm so steeped in grace that many of us are. I mean, I think we all are, but are so unaware of it, so have become so adept at keeping it outside, that, you know, this unlearning process is, there's a lot of layers, and they're not, it's like, if you know, like what they say about epigenetics, that experience can, in a sense, change your DNA, like, you know, generations of experience, that the culture is so, you know, kind of was so led astray by what we thought Jesus was saying. What's come down over the years, which felt punitive and felt, you know, like I mentioned early on about trying to understand Jesus from the Aramaic. This is what Jesus was saying at the time, that original sin is just the sense of feeling that I'm separate, you know. So it's you know, it's magnificent to me that this is being taught. And I guess what I need is just some patience with myself. I mean, you guys have been doing this for quite a long time, and you're still asking the questions, you know. So I think that I'll once again say that, you know, this is a lifetime work, and many, who knows how many lifetimes, if that's how you see it.
Thanks, Audrey. Yeah, I think we all come to that realization that in the beginning, we all want it now. It's like, and then we realize, nah. And then I want it now because I can do it myself now. And then that just gets me deeper down the ladder. You know, it's just, yeah, and you realize it isn't of you at all. And when you have these little moments where we feel that peace and that comfort and that joy, or we actually hear that voice that says, I will not forsake you, I'm always here for you. And we know it's true and clear. We just keep coming back, and we keep unlearning, like you say. It's a huge unlearning, and we just keep going back to the habits of what we have always done, you know. And that's why I think it's so important that we have to kind of experience these lessons, and not just try to do them intellectually, but try to have these experiences he's asking us to have, so we can translate them into this I want and this I don't want. And the guilt is making me feel it is truly hell, and salvation is not the hell that I think it is, you know. And yeah, that hanging on to that individuality is just so strong and present in everything I do. So yeah, Vicky, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, you were talking about, Dave, of how working all these things together in the classes, sorry about that, are starting to come together and kind of gelling for you. And I was thinking this morning, my 7-year-old daughter woke up crying from a nightmare, a bad dream she had. And when I was telling her, it's over now, the dream is done, it's not here anymore, I realized that was for us from the Course. Like, I mean, like, I really, not that I walk every day where, yeah, the dream's over, man, I'm cool. It's that there is stuff, you know, the words in here tell us it is done, it is gone. And, you know, we're in the atonement place now. And so I just felt like I was really telling her the truth, and to calm her down. And now I realize how much it calms me down to know that. So this stuff does get unlearned. The stuff we need to get unlearned happens, and the stuff that we need to remember happens. It's not a rush. It's absolutely gentle and harmless, and the way of it.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who's got a couple of little boys, and he always relates, like when he's got his son and he's laying on his shoulder and he's talking to his son, and then the next thing he knows, he looks down and his son is just asleep. And he realizes that he's the Father and his Son is the Son, and he found comfort in his Father, comfort enough to fall asleep. And he translates these relationships with his Son like he would with God and himself. And like he says, when I fall asleep at night thinking of God, and he says, what an overwhelming sense of joy he gets from that. And he says, I wonder if God gets an overwhelming sense of joy when at night, when I fall asleep thinking and hearing his voice, if it brings him a sense of joy. And so he translates that relationship with God and as his in the Son, and him as the Father and the Son. And like he says, and then there's times where I'm telling my son what to do, and he won't listen to a word I'm saying. And he goes, and then I see myself in my relationship with God is he's telling me all the right things to do, and I refuse to listen, and I just go out like a 2-year-old doing what I'm doing. And so it's kind of funny how that just all translates into kind of how we live our life, you know. So yeah. Okay,
Ken was
yeah.
talking about the atonement once, and half jokingly he said he was channeling this. He said the ego's DNA was DNA, do not atone. That's the ego's DNA.
Right. All right, let's look at paragraph 2. Jean, would you like to read paragraph 2, please?
If guilt is hell, what is opposite? This is not difficult, surely. The hesitation you may feel in answering is not due to the ambiguity of the question. But do you believe that guilt is hell? If you did, you would see at once how direct and simple the text is, and you would not need a workbook at all. No one needs to practice to gain what is already his. You know, and I was thinking about guilt and how it is so bad. And if this power is so true that is within all of us, I have forgotten, and I can't even touch upon it, how good I am. You know, so this has given me a new perspective on guilt. Like when I feel so bad and I'm in shame or whatever, if I could understand that this is not true and that I let a little bit of that light in of the goodness that is truly, it is my birthright. Thank you.
Yeah, and then, you know, it tells us, I keep going back to the beginning of chapter 2, where he tells us that we're created perfect and that we make those 4 mistakes. And the first mistake I may make is thinking that I'm a body and not spirit in a state of grace. That's the first mistake I make. And then the rest of them just fall in on top of that. That I think I do bad things, and now I think that you are just like me, but different. And it all just falls in from there. And so that's, I think, what I have to undo is one, thinking that I'm a body and I'm just going to do things that bodies do. I mean, I can't stop that, you know. But truly, what's the truth is that I'm really a mind in the mind of God. And the best I can do is try to have those experiences and reflect those in the world I see. And so I just have to look at everything as a lesson as how to switch that back to innocence, you know, and from the guilt. And so there's the classroom that we just have to continue to work in. And I can't do it with every single thought, but I can do it with the ones that I know take my peace away and make me upset. And that's where I have to start, you know, and maybe I'll string today a couple of days of peace together, or at least a couple of days of unlearning, you know, undoing. And that's all I have to really kind of work at this point, you know. So yeah, not to take it too seriously. You know, I couldn't help because I went to Ken for a little bit of help, and I'm going to read in chapter 18 on page 394 in the text, paragraphs 4 and 5. But I'm going to read it from Ken's workbook because he does such a great job of sorting out the its and the theys and the those so it makes it really clear. So the circle of fear lies just below the level the body sees and seems to be the whole foundation on which the world is based. Here, the world, are all the illusions, all the twisted thoughts, all the insane attacks, the fury, the vengeance and betrayal that were made to keep the guilt in place so the world could rise from it, guilt, and keep it, guilt, hidden. Its, guilt's, shadow rises to the surface enough to hold its, guilt's, most internal manifestations in darkness and to bring despair and loneliness to it, the world, and keep it, the world, joyless. Yet its, guilt's, intensity is veiled by its, guilt's, heavy coverings and kept apart from the world, was made to keep it, guilt, hidden. The body cannot see this, guilt, for the body arose from this, guilt, for its, guilt's, protection, which depends on keeping it, guilt, not seen. The body's eyes will never look on it, guilt, yet they see what it, guilt, dictates. The body will remain guilt's messenger and will act as it, guilt, directs as long as you believe that guilt is real. For the reality of guilt is the illusion that seems to make it, guilt, heavy and opaque, impenetrable, and a real foundation for the ego's thought system. Its, guilt's, thinness and transparency are not apparent until you see the light behind it, guilt, and then see it, guilt, as a fragile veil before the light. And he made that just so clear, because I know when I read that without his book, it was like, who's on first and what's on second. But it's just, so he does such a great job in clarifying how guilt works in this world, and no wonder we can't see it. It's like, it's designed so perfectly for us not to see it. And we really have to do some searching to find those things, that I'm doing. Yeah, Vicky.
It reminds me of a line someone read in class a week or so ago that I had never really realized, but this goes along with it. The body was made to kill the mind. And anyway, it just reminded me of that. I was like, I never thought of that. But yeah, I'm hiding, right? I'm hiding in this body so that it appears before the mind. So you can't see my mind, and yet we're all thinking with the same mind.
So, all right, let's look at paragraph 3. Oris, would you like to read 3, please?
Sure. We have already said that your holiness is the salvation of the world. What about your own salvation? You cannot give what you do not have. A Savior must be saved. How else can he teach salvation? Today's exercises will apply to you, recognizing that your salvation is crucial to the salvation of the world. As you apply the exercises to your world, the whole world stands to benefit. We can't, the only, perception makes projection. And so if I'm saved, I'm atoned, I'm already okay, then I don't have to project on the world.
Yeah, what came to my mind is, how can I see a world of innocence if I don't see it in myself? How could that possibly happen? I don't think I could ever see from that perspective unless I thought that perspective in myself.
Yeah, and to me, the hardest person to see that in is myself. I can visualize other people, no matter how hateful they are, I can visualize them as good, but it's hardest to visualize myself as being holy, whole, yeah, saved.
I guess the blessing in that is if we think that all our thoughts are a reflection of ourself, then in that sense, you do somewhat see it in yourself. If you can see it in someone else, because that's your thought that you're seeing. So I guess there's a good side of that too, every once in a while. Anybody else on that one? All right. Let's see. Lisa, how about 4, please?
Your holiness is the answer to every question that was ever asked, is being asked now, or will be asked in the future. Your holiness means the end of guilt and therefore the end of hell. Your holiness is the salvation of the world and your own. How could you, to whom your holiness belongs, be excluded from it? God does not know unholiness. Can it be he does not know his son? That is just such a great paragraph. Thank you for letting me read it.
Yeah, I love that your holiness is the answer to every question that ever was asked. And that question is, who am I? And, I remember a conversation with my mom several years ago. And she said, as an adolescent, she goes, you were so easily influenced by your friends because you didn't know who you were. And so if they were getting in trouble, you get in trouble with them, And he said, she always said, you always chose the wrong friends because you always got in trouble. But it was just, even then I could see where I was searching for my identity, through other people. In retrospect, that's what I was doing, and I still do that. I try to find my identity through other people. I don't know who I am, and I'm out there searching. And I'm starting to wake up to the fact of who or what I am, but it's not this for sure. Yeah. All right. Anybody else on that one?
There's a song by a group from North Carolina, kind of rock country group called, the name of the group is called Need, N-E-E-D, to Breathe. And they have this song called Who Am I to Be Loved by You? Who am I to be loved by you? And then, of course, and they kind of hint at it in the words of the song. But I mean, they're singing to God. You can tell it's a kind of a Christian-based song. In spite of all the horrible stuff that we think we did or didn't do. But the gist of it, the answer is, who am I to be loved by you? I am holiness. I mean, that's what God loves. That's all he sees. Mm-hmm. He sees who we really are. That's how that's how we can experience that he is loved by us.
Yeah, and I think so clearly Jesus knows we cannot see that in ourselves, and that's why we need another guide, another teacher to show us that. Because that's what we're afraid to look at. And then what would there be a need to be out there searching for my identity in everyone else? There would be no need for it. And then what would I do with all my time? Oh, goodness. Audrey, would you like to read 5, please?
Yes, please. A full 5 minutes are urged for the 4 longer practice periods for today, and longer and more frequent practice periods are encouraged. If you want to exceed the minimum requirements, more rather than longer sessions are recommended, although both are suggested.
Read 6 too, please.
Begin the practice periods as usual by repeating today's idea to yourself. Then, with closed eyes, search out your unloving thoughts in whatever form they appear: uneasiness, depression, anger, fear, worry, attack, insecurity, and so on. Whatever form they take, they are unloving and therefore fearful. And so it is from them that you need to be saved. But I remember finding that very, very helpful. It made it more concrete to me because I had plenty to choose from.
Yeah. I know when I do these, I've got so many, I don't even know where to start sometimes, and then I can't think of any of them. It's like, you're like, well, there's so many, I can't think of one all of a sudden. What's going on here? Oh, goodness. All right. Anybody else on that? Okay. Abe, how about 7? Read 7 and 8, please.
Right. How's my sound? Okay? Sound okay?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, better.
Specific situations, events, or personalities you associate with unloving thoughts of any kind are suitable subjects for today's exercises. It is imperative for your salvation that you see them differently, and it is your blessing on them that will save you and give you vision. Slowly, without conscious selection, and without undue emphasis on any one in particular, search your mind for every thought that stands between you and your salvation. Apply the idea for today to each of them in this way. My own unloving thoughts about blank are keeping me in hell. My holiness is my salvation. Yeah. When I read this in the mornings as an exercise, things I can usually do the exercises fairly well, but as the day goes on, I start drifting. And eventually it's like it's completely blocked out. Sometimes it happens rather fast, like within less than an hour of doing the morning session. Sometimes it takes longer, but usually, by the end of the day, I have drifted away from this by miles. And then the next day is the same thing over again. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, well, he recognizes that. That's why as the lessons go on, he asks for a little more time, like every hour, every 30, because he knows we just can't hang with it. So he tries to ask for a little more dedication from us. So keep it in the forefront of your mind. And I think if we do half sometimes of what he asks us to do, we're way far ahead than if we don't do it at all. So, and it starts to happen. Jean, did you have your hand up?
Along that same line in paragraph 5, line 2, if you want to exceed the minimum requirements, more rather than longer sessions are recommended, although both are suggested. And I thought in longer sessions, I get hugely distracted. If I could just do more, like just more, remember quickly, because this is simple. And if I stay too long at the fair, I could make it real complicated, and I'm back to my unloving thought about that person. So I think having more.
Yeah, and really what he's really telling me to do is every time I'm judging something, really think about that, just see the purpose of it, what you're doing here. So, and I don't know about y'all, but it's all day long for me. So it keeps me right there if I can think of it.
One of the hysterical things I noticed about this set of 20 lessons, that in every lesson, the time frame shifts. I mean, he'll say, like, try this 3 times today, maybe 15 minutes. The last 20 lessons prior to this, it was 5 minutes every hour, which he knew drove us all crazy. So now in these lessons, every lesson, I swear, the time frame's different. He said, well, try this in the morning, try it at night if you remember during the day. And then the next lesson, he says, oh, try this for, this, and this. And it's like, just try it, for God's sake. Just try it whenever you think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really trying to get through to us for sure. He knows we don't know how miserable we are. So, all right. Let's look at 9. Gerald, do you want to read 9? Hiding out there up in the corner for me.
Sure. You may find these practice periods easier if you intersperse them with several short periods during which you merely repeat today's idea to yourself slowly for a few times. You may also find it helpful to include a few short intervals in which you just relax and do not seem to be thinking of anything. Sustained concentration is very difficult at first. It will become much easier as your mind becomes more disciplined and less distractible. I kind of identify with what Abe's been talking about, it's really fairly intense in the morning, and then as the day progresses, it becomes less and less and less intense. But I also kind of like this paragraph from the mind training piece. It's kind of like he's always offering different suggestions as just kind of a way to practice different styles or to think differently or whatever. He's just presenting some new challenges as I see it. And I try to adhere to that. And then as the day progresses, it's gone. And then it's 76ers time or something that I think I need to do to give me a break. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think it just really comes down to purpose.
Mm-hmm.
In the morning, that's my purpose, to get quiet and to sit with the lesson. And as the day goes on, my purpose is more about me and the world and all the things and the distractions that I have to do. And I lose my purpose throughout the course of the day. And then for some reason, my purpose just before bed at night is to sit in that quiet time again. And I can get very settled in the evening just before bed again, and that's just how it works. But, every once in a while, I'll take that quiet time in the middle of the day and it just resets me. Yeah. And, I just have to realize I'm getting crazy and I have to take a step back and get reset again and change my purpose. But really, it just comes down to that. Go ahead, Abe.
I see an analogy between these exercises and physical exercise. They recommend that you do 30 minutes a day or whatever. And, if I cannot find the 30 minutes, then I don't do anything. But they also say, just move around for 2 minutes. That's way better than sitting on the couch. And I think that same thing applies here. Even if we cannot do the full methodology that is recommended for the day, just remembering that there's something and someone that is ready to help you get out of the morass that I seem to be finding myself in, even for 30 seconds, is way better than not doing that at all. So doing it highly imperfectly is really quite good. Yeah.
God first, Myra. Yeah, God first. They're our purpose, right? We got it, Myra. Yeah. Who are we putting first? Oh, goodness gracious.
I was thinking about that italics thing. My unloving thoughts about anybody are keeping me in hell. And I mean, consciously, I think my judgments, those are the unloving thoughts, that they're actually protecting me. I'm trying to decide who and what is hurting me and what do I need to do in order to stop it. That's what all my judgments are pretty much about. Whether it's political or personal or whatever it is, I don't call them unloving thoughts, but I could call them judgments. And consciously I think this is what I need to do to defend myself. Meaning, my holiness is definitely not my salvation. My identity as the Son of God, that's not who I really am at all. And in order to protect this vulnerable thing, I have to make these judgments. I have to decide. Call them whatever you want. Yeah, they're sort of unloving. They're not very nice thoughts, but they're necessary to protect myself. And so all those unloving thoughts are keeping me in hell, because hell is simply not knowing I'm the Son of God. I mean, it's kind of like I have to back up into sit myself down and explain, well, this judgment really is kind of unloving. Yeah, but I got to do it to protect myself. But what am I trying to protect here? Oh, my identity is little old me.
Yeah, and I never think that judgment of that person is the Holy Spirit disguised in that person, here to teach me a lesson, to look at myself and say, this is what you believe in you. Are you willing to let that go? And in that, I would have appreciation for my brother and those judgments, but it's rare that I get to that place. More and more I am, I'm starting to see that. Rather than condemn them, I'm starting to be thankful that they're showing me that. Not usually in the moment, but when I get through the other side of it, or at least well into it, I can see what it was, the purpose of it more and more. And I think that's that little bit of willingness he talks about to see that, you know, to even have the willingness to even try to look at it that way, because I've never even thought of that in my whole life, you know. All right, well, let's do a closing here. Let's look at 469 in the workbook. Lesson 333. And Lynn Altman, when you find that, would you mind reading?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy. Actually, I opened right to that page.
Oh, wow, perfect.
Forgiveness ends the dream of conflict here. Conflict must be resolved. It cannot be evaded, set aside, denied, disguised, seen somewhere else, called by another name, or hidden by deceit of any kind, if it would be escaped. It must be seen exactly as it is, where it is thought to be, in the reality which has been given it, and with the purpose that the mind accorded it. For only then are its defenses lifted, and the truth can shine upon it as it disappears. Father, forgiveness is the light you chose to shine away all conflict and all doubt, and light the way for our return to you. No light but this can end our evil dream. No light but this can save the world. For this alone will never fail in anything, being your gift to your beloved Son.
Thank you, Lynn. And let's just get quiet for a minute. And gently come back, or not. That might be a better choice.
Whew, what a ride.
Thanks everybody for allowing me to
Thank
do that.
you.
Thank you,
Wow.
David.
Thanks,
for that.
Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
David.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you. Good. Thank
Have a
you.
good day, everybody.
You too.
Two.
See you.